This episode of the Media Leader podcast was edited by our production partner, Trisonic, the audio advertising specialists with over 25 years' experience. For more, visit trisonic.co.uk.
To be able to tell a brand story closer to somebody's purchase, it just closes the gap.
Welcome to the Media Leader podcast. I'm Jack Benjamin. This week on the Media Leader is our first ever Retail Media Week in Focus. Retail media has been having something of a moment. Investment in the media channel has grown substantially. In 2025, ad spend grew 17.5% year on year, according to the latest Warc figures. Brands are seeking to join up the ends of the funnel by targeting consumers based on their shopping habits and measuring directly the link between ad delivery and outcomes within closed-loop retail environments. But as we heard at our Future of Brands event just last week, with growth has come some skepticism. Is retail media overhyped? How is it really being defined? One of the largest retail media players here in the UK is Tesco. Recently, the Media Leader reported that Tesco Media had launched new video ad inventory on its website and app as it looks to offer brand advertising opportunities to marketers. Tash, Whitmey is the managing director of the Tesco Media and Insight platform. She joined me recently via video call to discuss the latest innovations the company is making, the state of the retail media market and how Tesco sizes up to global competitors like Amazon, and whether shopping habits are changing amid macroeconomic turbulence. Throughout the week, we'll be publishing a number of stories and op-eds on the topic of retail media, and I'm very glad to kick things off with an interview with Whitmey. This is our conversation. I hope you enjoy. Tash, Whitmey, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
You've been at Tesco Media for a number of years now, but you've been working as managing director since 2023. I'm curious, before we get into all your work at Tesco, what got you into a career in media in the first place, and then what led you to wanting to work for Tesco?
Well, goodness, that's a long story. So I will try and summarize it. So I actually worked for 18 years at Havas. And my time at Havas really spanned a couple of chapters. So the first 10 years or so I worked in the data part of Havas. So obviously that spanned creative data and media data. And I fell in love with the opportunity that data creates to drive insights and also drive better communications that solve marketing challenges. The second half of my time at Havas was really in the loyalty program design space. So we designed loyalty programs for many top retailers and other organizations in the UK and around the world. And one of the clients that I worked on there was Tesco Clubcard. And as a result of that, I actually shifted to Tesco in 2018 to run the transformation of the Clubcard program. So actually the first 6 years of my time within the Tesco group was spent in the customer organization at Tesco leading a transformation of Clubcard. And really the key thing from that was, Tesco is such a brilliant organization, but what you are really able to do is have a significant impact on the lives of many customers. And that's really one of the amazing things about Clubcard. And then in September 2023, an opportunity came up to lead Tesco Media, and it really felt like that was bringing it all together. So I'm a Tesco colleague, so that value of no one tries harder for customers kind of woven through me like a stick of rock. But really, any great retail media organization is fueled by data and insights. And so obviously, we are housed within dunnhumby, and we are able, therefore, to leverage 30 years of data science, but also this ability to drive scaled media executions and solutions that deliver brilliant outcomes for customers, first of all, but also drive growth and transformation for clients. And the client thing goes right back to my time at Havas, building significant, sustainable, transformative relationships with clients. So really, it feels like Tesco Media is the place where it's all come together.
Oh, well, that's really nice to hear. And as a Clubcard holder myself, thanks for all the discounts over the years.
It's a pleasure.
Retail media has grown pretty substantially in the past few years. According to IAB UK's latest digital ad spend report, which we covered on this podcast just last month, retail media investment grew 18% last year to 3.8 billion. From your vantage point at Tesco, where is that growth coming from? Where's the investment coming from? Is it mostly CPG brands in your instance, or are all types of brands maybe interested at the moment?
Well, I think the first thing I'd probably say is that retail media is probably an industry that's coming out of its nascent phase, and really that's what's driving that growth. And it's now being professionalized. I feel like it's being professionalized with more integration, standardization, shifting from a test and learn at the bottom of the marketing funnel to proper full funnel marketing approaches that solve bigger client briefs. So I would say it's turning into a mainstream component of the advertising industry and isn't something that we may or may not add on to a media plan. And we really see the growth coming from CPGs. So those organizations that sell their products in Tesco, but it's not just the CPGs, it's where we're executing. So it's the full funnel. Whereas I think historically retail media has been viewed as, it's a bit of sponsored on a website or it's some point of sale in store. It's really the ability to take audiences that we derive from the club card data and use those audiences to answer marketing challenges, and also then the ability to curate multiple touch points through the funnel. And then obviously that ability to measure what success looks like because you have the end outcome. And so I think it's moving out of a nascent phase. It is growing up the funnel. And I think all of the CPGs that we work with are recognizing that this is a core part of answering their brand and marketing challenges. And how do they work with partners that are able to kind of lift themselves out of performance and into brand, and then also to be able to deliver growth, customer growth, category growth, and be able to measure the impact of what they do.
When you talk to clients, where is the budget coming from? Is the pie growing to invest in retail media, or is it sort of moving in from another part of the media plan and saying, actually, we want to put more focus here?
Well, what's really interesting is that every single one of the clients that we work with is structuring themselves, is going through their own transformation in order to capitalize on this opportunity. So I don't think there are any two CPGs that are organizing themselves in the same way. And so I think if you think about the traditional ways that CPGs have structured their budget pots, they've had shopper pot, they've had a brand pot, they've had a performance pot, they've had a digital pot. Retail media kind of sits across all of those. And so we see the growth coming from all of those areas. So definitely as we work with our Tesco CPGs, how do we plan further out with those CPGs so that we can really answer their brand challenges? And then, of course, the budget is coming from what was known as shopper, but might now be known as performance. But it is also coming from some of those brand and kind of core media budgets. So I would say no two CPGs are the same. They're all going through their own journey of change. And the growth is coming from multiple budget pots as a result of that. And as those budget pots synchronize around the opportunity for retail media, we'll probably continue to see that grow.
What would you say is the biggest challenge that CPG marketers are facing today?
The ones that I talk to on a regular basis are thinking really carefully about what is the future of brand marketing in a world that's more influenced by influencers, potentially in a world that's more influenced by agentic and agentic commerce. They're all super conscious of, what are the key brands that we want to support? What's our innovation plan? What's our MPD plan around that? And then how do we work with our big retail partners and our broader media partners to synchronize and make that better?
In terms of your position at Tesco, as MD, what are some of the innovations that you've looked to drive over the past couple of years? I imagine you mentioned it's a growing space. It's moving out of its nascent form, and it only can do that if there are innovations that are meeting client demands in new ways.
Absolutely. So I think I'd probably just wind back the clock a little bit. So the first thing we did was set a really clear vision And the vision that we wanted to center everybody around was like, we want to be the number one retail media platform of choice for CPGs and beyond. And really, that word choice is important, because to be the number one platform of choice, you need to have fantastic propositions. You need to move beyond selling pick and mix inventory into full funnel executions. You need to be brave around the innovations that you're driving. And the second thing I would say is we set a mission. And so our mission is to build media experiences that are firstly additive to the customer journey, and really helping customers discover brands and products that are either existing or new that work for customers, advertisers, and Tesco in that order. And we're really focused on that. So you will not see our stores littered with random executions that don't tie into what you see on Tesco.com, because we've been really deliberate about the types of executions that we deliver for our clients. What I would say, Ben, against that context, we have made several innovations. So if I think about audiences, so we are constantly thinking about the way that we derive our audiences and the strength of the audiences that we are able to provide to our clients, whether that is moving from static audiences to active audiences, whether it's building in predictive audiences, whether it's now kind of AI fueled audiences. So at the heart of this, it's about the audiences that we build. So we're constantly thinking about how we innovate in that space. We are constantly thinking about how we innovate in the world of what I would call brand advertising products. So you'll have seen recently that we launched video on Tesco.com. That's really important because it's a way of enabling our advertisers to tell brand stories that are closer to the point of purchase. So that's a really important innovation for us, because we think video has always been a great opportunity to build brand and tell stories. But if our advertisers can now do this at a contextual moment on a person's shopping journey, it's a pretty influential place to inspire customers.
We reported on that news, and it was interesting because, why should advertisers want to see retail media as a brand opportunity and not just a performance opportunity? Was kind of the first question that came into my head.
Well, I think if you think about retail media operating through the full funnel, from brand all the way down to purchase and then ongoing loyalty, if you take the audience dynamic of that, we've got 24 million households on Clubcard. And so when you think about scale, that's the vast majority of the households in the UK. So deriving audiences from that data is hugely beneficial in terms of just narrowing the top of the funnel a little bit. So those audiences that we can drive, we can then follow them through our whole funnel. So at the right at the top of the funnel, we are telling brand stories that prime customers to buy products, and then we take them through a journey. So we prompt them then, and then we persuade them to purchase. So I would argue that one of the ways that retail media is moving out of its nascent phase, where it was viewed as a shopper execution, is by moving up the funnel. And to be able to tell a brand story closer to somebody's purchase, it just closes the gap between that brand story and the purchase. And then we're able to actually say whether that's performed. And so that's why we were very deliberate about launching video, and also where we've launched it on Tesco.com.
Yeah. Why video as opposed to other types of brand advertising? And then also why the app and the website as opposed to, I don't know, let's say in-store experience?
So we already do video in stores. So we've rolled out a significant digital screen network over the last couple of years, and we're already showing video in our stores. And so it felt like the natural evolution of that was to launch video in Tesco.com, both app and web, because we have millions of customers that go to our website every week. So it's an extension of that. So again, driving up the funnel.
And to mark the launch of the new format, you said, quote, "For too long, marketers have faced a false choice between building a brand and driving performance." And we've been talking sort of in and around the funnel and collapsing the funnel and moving up and down it a little bit. But is the funnel even a useful sort of paradigm anymore? Are brand and performance useful paradigms anymore when you have opportunities such as this?
I think they are useful ways of curating answers to brand and marketing challenges. Because I think if you think about it yourself as an advertiser, you do still think about the funnel, whether it's awareness, consideration, purchase, or whether it's prime, prompt, purchase, and protect. So they are a useful way of giving the different bits of the different touch points that we have a role in our media planning. So I think they're useful. I think brand and performance will become increasingly intertwined. But again, back to your question around CPGs and advertisers, often those sit in different budget pots. They're managed in a slightly different way. So we think that they are coming closer together. And I think our advertisers do too. But at the moment, they serve a useful differentiation for us.
Okay. In terms of how you sit relative to some of your other competitors, a lot of retail media growth is being driven by massive global companies, the Amazons, the Alibabas of the world. What's your pitch to advertisers, particularly obviously in the UK, to say, actually, you can get a lot more out of your relationship with us as opposed to some of the global competitors that also offer other types of inventory themselves?
We believe that we have the best omnichannel offering in the UK. And that word omnichannel is important because we can link off-site, on-site, and in-store at scale. And I think in-store is an important dynamic of that. We, as I say, have 24 million Clubcard households that are highly engaged. That gives us the biggest behavioural data set in the UK, and it spans 30 years of Clubcard. So our ability to look into that and build audiences and help our advertisers get to the right customers for the right brief, we believe is second to none. And then when you think about Tesco's scale, whether it's our market share, which I think has been at 28.5%, whether you think about our grocery.com market share, so eyeballs on Tesco.com, whether you think about the number of stores we have, so just under 3,000 stores, when you bring together that omnichannel aspect with the 30 years of data science that dunnhumby has, with the scale of Tesco and the strength and depth of the relationships that Tesco already has with those CPGs, and retail media's ability to amplify what Tesco's already doing with those CPGs. And finally, when you think about the progress that we're making with our app and with our app traffic and some of the initiatives around personalization, and then finally this belief that we will succeed if we deliver better for customers and we are not interrupting their journey, but we are enhancing their journey, I think that would be a good summary of why we think we're different.
Gotcha. You mentioned new things like personalization, further developing the app. I'm curious, you've released these new video formats on the app and on the website. What are things that you want to do going forward to further innovate, to further meet the demands of clients over the next, let's say, 12 to 18 months or so?
You will excuse me for not giving away any we don't have a history of like giving away too much about the future. So we need to continue to make ourselves frictionless to do business with. And when I think about what that really means is, how do advertisers plan, buy, and execute media in an increasingly self-serve way? So you will have heard of Sphere, which is our demand-side platform. So we will continue to innovate in that space. We have just launched an alpha version of an AI-powered creative studio. So what that effectively does is it kind of takes creative and it takes a media plan and it develops creative in real time. We will, of course, be thinking about ways that we can make media planning more seamless And we will continue to work alongside our Tesco colleagues to think about, as Tesco builds out its personalisation capability, how does that make our ads more relevant and therefore perform better? And we're also thinking long and hard about the next phase of measurement for retail media and how that's standardised across the ecosystem. And then we will continue to be brave with our innovations. So we didn't quite finish on the innovation point. So other things that we've done is, introduce the concept of store wrapping, which is an amazing branded experience if it's in a contextually relevant place. And one that I would call out would be the Wembley store, when we wrapped that with Pepsi. And that was brilliantly relevant because they were sponsoring the event that was happening in the Wembley Extra in the Wembley Stadium. So it's contextually and geographically relevant for our customers. And again, that's to that point of we will do things that are better for customers. And we haven't really touched on non-endemic, which is advertising products that aren't sold in our stores. We did a fantastic execution with Vauxhall Electric, where they sponsored our EV charging points. Again, it's contextually and geographically relevant for our customers. So we've really thought long and hard about the places we want to innovate in retail media that aren't just about, to your question, they're not just about what happens in the app and on the website. How can we basically think about our stores as fantastic branded experiences? And it was with that in mind that we rolled out our digital screen network. It was with that in mind that we've doubled down on Scan as You Shop, which is our handheld shopping device. And how can we get relevant and targeted and helpful advertising into that? So it's all in this banner of helpful customer experiences.
And what strikes me is that so much of it speaks to the in-store dynamic, as you said. When I brought up some of your big global competitors, they don't necessarily have the in-store experience that you do offer. And so it strikes me that so many of the innovations that you're looking for, sort of turning the branded experience of the being live in a store and shopping, but then also, or charging your car while you're shopping, all of these types of things. It's almost like viewing a store as an out-of-home placement. That's what it strikes me as. I don't know if you would sell it that way.
The vast majority of our customers still do their big shop in store. And so we actually think that store, in the drive for digital retail media growth, store's been massively underrated as an opportunity to talk to customers. So would we view it as digital out of home? Sometimes, but I think more we'd view it as I'm a customer and I'm navigating my way around store, how can it provide me with useful signposting? How can it pop up ads, whether they're on a digital screen or more traditional point of sale or in Scan as You Shop, that are, again, it's back to that thing of helping me find the things that I want to find, but also discover new products in a more inspirational way. And we definitely see our stores as a ongoing and sustained mechanism for doing that. And we're obviously thinking about, how can we be quite thoughtful about how we expand that into our on-site media proposition, which is obviously a much smaller space.
Yeah.
And you have to be really conscious of the customer mission. So if I'm just coming to fill up my basket and leave, then what's the role of media there? Versus if I'm in a more of an inspiration mindset and an inspiration mission, like what's the role of retail media there? So we think really hard about the placements and the retail media that we have across all of our ecosystem.
How does that apply then to the non-endemics that you're working with? I mean, you gave one example, but I'm curious, when so many people are coming into stores, myself included, I'm a very quick shopper. I know what I'm coming into the store to buy most of the time. If I were to see an ad from a non-endemic, either in store or even if it's just searching on the app when I'm maybe looking for new recipes to consider and different ingredients I need, why would I want to necessarily be in that place?
Well, obviously you've got the huge scale of the sheer number of customers that come into our stores. The non-endemic brands that we work with that are going to surface within the Tesco ecosystem, we think about long and hard around, are they going to be additive to the experience? Are they going to be seen as relative? And are they a good kind of partner for Tesco? So that's why you won't see our stores littered with non-endemic advertising. We're very deliberate about who we work with and where we put those ads, hence the Vauxhall one. But also, we recently did a campaign with Apple Pay at our tills, because obviously I'm in my payment journey, so it's relevant to see something for Apple Pay. So we think pretty long and hard about it.
Gotcha. You mentioned sort of looking into the next phase of measurement and the idea that maybe there's a standardization process that needs to happen across retail media. What is your dream scenario for retail media measurement? If you could wave a magic wand.
Well, I think it's a really interesting thing, isn't it? That of all of the media ecosystem, you would expect retail media to be the most adept at measurement.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's got the closed loop.
Mm-hmm.
But what we see is like, it's getting a lot better as we move out of the nascent phase, standardization. So when we talk to our clients, they will use words like incrementality and return on advertising spend, and often based on their own MMMs and their own mechanisms, they mean something slightly different. So my dream would be to see standardized measurement across the retail media industry, where it's all using the same words to mean the same thing. So that would be number one. And we do actually work really closely with the IAB on driving those standards.
Do you think that's realistic, working with other competitors on that?
Well, I mean, there are standardized ways of doing attribution and econometrics. So I think just getting to some form of standardization would be of comfort for our CPGs and our advertisers. So we're always in the mind of what's going to make it better for them.
Mm-hmm.
So we're really happy to partner with organisations like the IAB on what is the level of standardisation across the industry. For a long time, we've spoken about ROAS and iROAS, and often retail media organisations are very adept at doing ROAS or iROAS within a channel. I think the next frontier is iROAS across the channels, which is obviously quite hard to do, different measurement methodologies, etc., etc. And then I think the next frontier after that is incrementality, cross-channel and omni-channel incrementality. And then I think increasingly clients are thinking about, well, actually that's one way of doing it, but another way of doing it is you work with me on my MMMs, which we're going to do internally. So I think there's a journey to go on with measurement in this space,
and it's both,
and we are
collaborative and also individual, is what it sounds like.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
We've talked a lot about the audience, the shopping experience. Shopping data is really at the heart of all retail media, and so I wanted to ask a few questions about how Brits shop based off of what you know about them. And I'm just sort of curious at the moment, are there any notable habits or behaviors that are shaping shopping behavior, especially in 2026 and maybe end of 2025, that stick out to you?
Well, I think probably the first thing I would say is we see our customers individually. And we've got 24 million households, so we serve all different kinds of people. And we're really conscious and no group is static and everyone's got individual needs. And that's kind of what we're set up to serve at Tesco. And I think we used to think that grocery shopping was a habit, but our club card insights are starting to show us something else. So as shoppers are navigating economic pressure and growing choice, it's a quite complex landscape. And we find customers actively weighing up value, relevance, need, moment by moment. And so we definitely see that. And then I think you'll be aware of the mindsets research that we did earlier this year. And what was really interesting around that is, I think back to that comment about grocery shopping as a habit. Obviously, some of it is a habit. And there are missions where you want to go in, you want to replenish your basket, whether it's online or in store, and leave. And we need to not be interrupting that. But what we saw in that mindsets research was actually there's a shift from routine to responsive shopping. And only 25% of grocery purchases are habitual. And quite a lot of decisions are shaped in the moment by a shopper's current mindset rather than a fixed plan. And so actually that shifts the dynamic to emotionally open, inspiration-led journeys. And then I think nearly half of a grocery shop is actually spent in an open discovery state. And 71% of our customers actually enjoy finding new brands and 24% buying on autopilot. So in that world, what's the role of media as signposting and discovery? And so that has been a really interesting piece of research for us, thinking about then how we then perhaps shift the retail media experiences that we create and stop thinking them so much about kind of interruptive and start thinking about them as inspiration. And we think what's driving this is occasion-based shopping rather than category-based thinking. And shoppers are often thinking in kind of needs and moments. So if I'm shopping for a pizza, it could be because I'm doing a film night. Right. So what's the role for a bundle of products that we could advertise? If I'm shopping for sun cream, I could be thinking of a holiday. So what's the role for a near endemic? Like one of our club card partners is Virgin Atlantic. And so it's about how do we persuade our customers to be receptive to relevant inspiration, even from those kind of non and near endemic that we're thinking about long and hard now.
And you mentioned sort of a movie night. You can start to think more omni-channel as well. If you know a big cultural moment's happening, people are probably shopping for it. The likelihood of people meeting up, maybe those are opportunities, right? And there are some really interesting media strategists, I'm sure, that take advantage of all of those moments. You mentioned consumers tend to be maybe a bit more open-minded, less on autopilot as they're shopping than some people might perceive. How much does it come down, frankly, to cost, especially given some of the macro factors that you mentioned at the top, but we haven't necessarily dug into? I think it's on everyone's mind at the moment, certainly with war affecting energy markets and inflation potentially spiking again. Are those things that obviously brands will need to manage, but I guess from a shopping perspective, what should they know?
Well, first thing to say is I'm not an economist, so I'm probably not going to comment on in any depth on a K-shaped economy or anything like that. But I think our philosophy would always be, again, that we've got this amazing group of customers, 24 million, who are all individuals. And so when a brand is thinking about launching a new product or supporting a trade plan with a media activation or something like that, with like, who are the customers that we believe are the most relevant for customers for that brand to reach, and where are those customers, and how can we curate our experiences in the right way to reach those customers as they go on their shopping journey. So I think the role of brand marketers remains the same, as how do you reach consumers or customers in the right moment and make the shopper experience seamless, but at the same time engaging.
So you wouldn't necessarily advise a change in strategy if there are, tightening of belts from shoppers generally? Is it, not to say that it's business as usual, but to say that the same standards still apply to how you should be considering your retail media strategy?
I think so. And at Tesco, we would always think about value, which is a combination of price and quality. And we think that value is one of the defining levers. So we would always talk to our brands about that before just price.
Gotcha. Value is I think a good way to end it. Tash, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Media Leader podcast. Our executive producer is me, Jack Benjamin. Special thanks to our production partner, Trisonic. You can find all our episodes on the podcast platform of your choice or on our website at uk.themedialeader.com. But do please remember to subscribe to be notified of our next episode. You can also subscribe to our newsletter at The Media Leader to receive daily coverage of all the biggest news stories in media and advertising. From all of us at The Media Leader, I'm Jack Benjamin. See you next time.